Hey, and welcome back. So today we're going to work on SVLPN and SVLPA sentence patterns. First, as always, let's define what that means. So we're talking about subject, linking verb, predicate nominative, and subject, linking verb, predicate adjective. So what's a linking verb? A linking verb is actually part of your foundations memory work. You're going to work on those in cycle 1. There's a long list, and on my channel, I even have a little song to the tune of Ants Go Marching to help you memorize all of your linking verbs. A linking verb is going to join two words together, so you'll see those in your foundations memory work, or head over to my playlist and you'll find a catchy song to memorize. It's going to be so helpful to memorize your list of linking verbs so you can identify them really quickly whenever you're looking at sentences. What is a predicate nominative or a predicate adjective? Predicate is that part of a sentence that says something about the subject. And nominative is naming. Those are going to be your nouns. So a predicate nominative is going to rename the noun or the subject of your sentence. So let's get right in and practice this together. Our first sentence example is going to be, Gavin was the team leader. So right off the bat, let's start with our question confirmation. Who or what was the team leader? Gavin. So Gavin's going to be our subject noun. What is being said about Gavin? These state of being verbs and these linking verbs can be sort of tricky to identify. What's being said about Gavin was Gavin was. Was is the verb in our sentence. Gavin was what? Gavin was leader. Now, unlike our subject, verb, transitive, direct objects, predicate nominatives are not going to receive action from our verb. So let's see. Does leader receive action from was? It doesn't. So now our new question is going to be, does leader rename Gavin? Can we say Gavin equals leader? We can. So in that case, leader is going to be our predicate nominative. It is not receiving action from our verb, but it is renaming our subject. Now, we have two adjectives in this sentence. Which leader was Gavin? He was the leader, that's an article adjective, and he was team leader. In this sentence, team is also acting like an adjective, so we'll label it that way as well. So, Gavin was the team leader. Now, let's talk about how to diagram it. We're always going to start with our horizontal line, and the vertical line is going to separate the subject from the predicate. The difference this time is that we have a diagonal line on our diagram. This is to remind us that the predicate nominative is pointing back to that subject noun. It's going to be the same when we do our predicate adjectives as well. So we have the vertical line cutting all the way through and a diagonal line reminding us to point back to our subject. So the subject of our sentence is Gavin. And what was our verb? Was. Gavin was what? He was leader. Gavin equals leader? Yes. Leader is going to go in the predicate nominative. Now, we said those two adjectives were modifying leader. So we're going to make two diagonal lines underneath leader. One for the word the and one for the word team. And that's it. Gavin was the team leader. Great. We're going to make it a little bit more complicated now. Let's look at our next sentence. Tim and Jim are identical twins. So, I've tricked you a little bit this time because we actually have two subjects in this sentence, which is going to make the diagram a little bit more complicated. Let's dive in together. So, who or what are identical twins? Tim and Jim. We're going to label Tim subject noun, but we're also going to label Jim subject noun. And we'll come back to how we diagram that when we're finished. Both are subject noun. What is being said about Tim and Jim? Tim and Jim are. Again, this is one of our state of being verbs, a linking verb in this sentence, are. We're going to label are as our verb. Tim and Jim are what? Twins. Does twins receive action from are? It doesn't. Does twins rename Tim and Jim? Can we say Tim and Jim equals twins? We can. In that case, twins is predicate nominative. It is renaming Tim and Jim. So we're going to label twins as our predicate nominative. How is identical working in this sentence? In this case, identical is an adjective. What kind of twins? Which twins are they? They are identical. Identical is modifying twins, and that's our adjective. Now, since we have it all labeled appropriately, let's see how we're going to diagram this. As always, we're going to start with the sentence pattern. A long horizontal line with the subject split from the predicate, and a diagonal line so that the predicate nominative can point back to our subject. But this time, we have two subjects of our sentence. They're each going to get their own horizontal line, one just above the rest of the diagram, and one just below the diagram line. We'll put Tim up here, and we'll put Jim down here. Then we'll draw two diagonal lines connecting them to the rest of our diagram. And remember that both of them need to come before the split of the predicate, since they're both part of the subject. So Tim, Jim, what was our verb? Are, that's our linking verb. Tim, Jim are twins. That was our predicate nominative. We're going to put identical underneath twins because it's modifying the word twins. Which twins? Identical twins. Now, we have another coordinating conjunction, but where do we put it in this case? What we're going to do is actually draw a dotted line between Tim and Jim and write and vertically on that line between them. And remember, all of this has to come before the predicate. So Tim, Jim, and connecting those two diagonal lines together, and then we have the rest of the predicate together. Great job. We've done two examples of SVLPN. Now let's go and do SVLPA. In this case, instead of predicate nominative, we're going to have predicate adjective. So let's remember, what is an adjective? Adjectives modify nouns and pronouns. So once again, in this case, our predicate adjective is not going to receive any action from our verb. It's always going to be a linking verb, and it's going to describe our subject. Instead of renaming our subject, it's going to describe our subject. So another test, just like we did before, is we can say, in our previous example, Tim and Jim equals twins. We're going to do that same test and see if we could say equals to see if our subject equals the describing word, and then we'll have a predicate adjective. Let's start with this sentence. My father always seems wise. So, who or what always seems wise? Father. We're going to make father our subject noun. What is being said about father? Father seems. Seems is our linking verb in this sentence. Father seems what? Father seems wise. Now, does wise receive any action from seems? It doesn't. But does wise describe father? Is it modifying father? Can we say father equals wise? We can. So in this case, wise is a predicate adjective. Father seems wise. Now, we have two more words to look at. Let's go back to the beginning and look at my. Whose father is it? It's my father. My is acting as an adjective in this case, so we're going to label it as adjective. It's actually a pronoun adjective. And always. Always is an adverb. So we will say, how often does father seem wise? Always. Always is an adverb modifying the word seems, modifying a verb, which makes it an adverb. So we'll label always as an adverb. Now let's get on to diagramming it. Once again, just like we did in our predicate nominative, we're going to draw the same pattern for predicate adjective. The long horizontal line, the subject splits all the way from the predicate, and we're going to have the diagonal line looking back, reminding us that this time our predicate adjective is describing our subject of our sentence. So what was the subject? Father. What was being said about father? What's our verb? Seems. That's our linking verb. Seems. And father seems what? What was our predicate adjective? Father seems wise. So we have to put those two words. We had my and always. Where does my go? Which word is my modifying? Whose father? My father. That is the adjective modifying father. So we're going to put my underneath father. And remember, we're going to keep it capitalized because that's how it was in our original sentence. That was the first word of our sentence. We're going to maintain that capitalization in our diagram. My father, and now we have always. Always is an adverb. Adverbs modify verbs, adjectives, or other adverbs. So it can only go from one of those words. In this case, it is modifying our verb seems. How often does he seem wise? He always seems wise. So we're going to make the diagonal line under our verb seems for always. My father always seems wise. Great job. Let's do one more with the predicate adjective. This sentence, green apples taste sour. Now, we're going to play around with this one a little bit because taste sometimes can be a transitive verb or sometimes could be a linking verb. We have to make sure we identify which one it is. So, who or what taste sour? That's apples. We're going to label apples as our subject noun. What is being said about apples? Apples taste. That's going to be our verb. Now let's see. Apples taste what? Apples taste sour. Now, is sour receiving action from taste? Or are apples doing the tasting? They're not. So, taste is a linking verb and sour is describing apples. The apples are not the ones doing the tasting. We're just describing how they taste. So apples taste, that's our linking verb, and sour. Can we say apples equal sour? Yes. So sour is a predicate adjective pointing back to our subject, apples. Now what do we do about green? Which apples are they? They're the green apples. Green is an adjective. We'll label it like that. So now we're done labeling all our parts. Let's diagram the sentence. So we're going to start, as always, just drawing our sentence pattern for SVLPA. We draw that horizontal line, split the subject from the predicate, and we're going to draw a diagonal line reminding us to point back to our subject. Apples was our subject. We'll put that in the subject place. What was our verb? Taste. Apples taste. And what was our predicate adjective? Sour. We're going to remember that sour is pointing back to the apples. And now, which word was green modifying? Green is an adjective. It can only modify nouns or pronouns. In this case, we only have one in the sentence anyway. It's modifying apples. Which apples are they? Green apples. We're going to keep that G capitalized just like it was in our initial sentence, even in our diagram. So green is going to modify diagonal line right underneath apples, and it's going to stay capitalized. Great job. So today we diagrammed two SVLPN sentences and 2 SVLPA sentences. It's not so bad once you get to practice. As always, if you have any ideas or videos you'd love to see or something you need help with, please let us know in the comments and let us know how we can help you.